Happy New Year, everyone. Today's episode is probably one of the most impactful ones I've ever recorded because we're going to dive into how to become the most unrecognizable, irresistible, desirable version of you so that you can ultimately manifest the love that you have been looking for. So we're going to talk about all that and more today, so stay tuned. Hey there, it's your girl Nelly, matchmaker and dating coach. We talk about all things high value dating, how to meet your person, how to find love in today's dumpster fire dating economy, and also how to become a high value single because as I always say, we don't attract what we want in life, we attract what we are. So if that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you follow and subscribe to this podcast, and I can't wait to take you along this journey. Welcome to the High Value Dating Podcast. So I always get really excited whenever the new year comes around because even though you can technically do this any day of the week, any week of the year, I personally think it's really cool just after the holidays to press the reset button, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what is working and what's not working? What am I doing that's yielding results in my life that I'm happy with? And what do I feel really needs a little bit of a change up? And this doesn't, by the way, have to always be connected to dating. This could be financial. This could be physical. This could be spiritual. This could be the people that you have around you. This could be the city you live in. This could be the job that you have, your career, right? It all technically is somewhat interconnected because how we do one thing is, I believe, how we do everything. But I want you to take this moment, reflect, and this might take you a day or two, by the way. It's not necessarily always a 2-3 minute long exercise, but really think about it. Sit with yourself and ask, what is working well for me in life right now? And what do I want to change/improve upon? And then you're going to take the things that you want to improve upon and you're going to create goals around those things. For example, let's say you hate your job. And you're like, I do not like this job, or even, hey, I like this job, but I'm not making enough money in it. I want you to then establish a goal around that. Maybe it's like, hey, I want to get a promotion. That's my goal. And I would actually add like a timeline if you can. Like, I'd like to get a promotion in the next like 6 to 12 months. Or maybe it's like, hey, I don't like how I look in the mirror. I want to lose 20 pounds. Or maybe it's like, I don't like the friend group that I have. I want to create a community or have a community of people who are like-minded, ambitious, and enjoy the same hobbies as me. Insert your own goals. I'm just giving you some kind of examples here. But do that exercise and create those goals because we cannot strive to be better at anything in life if we don't even have a direction or an idea of where we're trying to strive to be. Maybe a goal, by the way, is like, hey, I want to stop dating emotionally avoidant people, or I want to stop being sad all the time. Then maybe the goal that you attach to that is I am going to work on meditating. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to do certain things that are going to help me move, again, in a direction that is actually allowing me to become closer to the person I'm trying to be. Something I actually like to do as well while I'm kind of going through this exercise is I visualize where I want to be in 12 months. I close my eyes and I actually daydream a little bit and I imagine future Nelly and how she looks, how she talks, where she lives, what kind of people she has around her, what her lifestyle is like, her habits, her income. I think about all of these things and I go through this exercise honestly pretty frequently, but I think a lot of people would benefit from doing it while you're kind of goal setting because it'll give you an idea of how great life could be or even better life could be. And there's a quote that I personally love and it is sort of salty, but the quote is, if I showed you who you could be, you would hate who you are. And the reason I love that quote is because I think so much of us don't actually ever live up to our full potential. And if we imagined how amazing we could be and how much better we could be at just doing the things that we actually enjoy, we could work on closing that gap. And I think personally, my opinion, not a fact, but I personally get happiness. And that's where I derive my sense of feeling like complete and whole from being the best version of myself in all aspects. It's not just financial. It's not just physical. It's really like holistic. But think about yourself as the most radiant version of you and be radically honest about where you're at versus where you want to be. And this might leave you feeling like you're at the base of a mountain. I know when I was going through my weight loss journey, and I've talked about this a few times on the podcast, I always felt like there was such a hurdle and I was never going to get to my goal. But I want you to at least get real about establishing that goal. And I personally, when I'm goal setting, bucket my goals out. Like I don't have a bunch of goals just kind of on paper. I will bucket them into spiritual goals, intellectual goals, financial goals, physical goals, friendship goals, lifestyle goals. Like I will have goals categorized in these different pillars, if you will, because it allows me to be really organized and also clear and makes me also feel like I am working on becoming a well-rounded person. And the reason this ties into high value dating, by the way, is because high value singles are well-rounded singles. They're the most desirable people in the dating marketplace. And chances are, if you're looking to date a high value person, you have to, not even chances are, the reality is, if you're looking to date a high value person, you have to become a high value person. You have to become the type of energy that you're trying to attract in. And really ask yourself, would I date me? And there are a lot of people who look amazing on the outside, but they don't have good routines or, a disciplined lifestyle. And so the inside is, it's like not necessarily there. And so they'll maybe get the person, but when they start dating that person, the other person might be like, well, you don't have your life together. You're a hot mess. Likewise, there are a lot of people who they do have a really buttoned up system on the inside, but for whatever reason, that's just not reflecting in how they carry themselves. So it's really important that you have all these things, all these ingredients, if you want to find the best partner for you. And so I would really implore you to start with goals. And goal setting is something that there's a lot of studies to support like what types of goal setting strategies work. For me, again, bucketing them out into different groups and adding like a time period with that's more of a range as opposed to I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months. It's like I want to lose anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds in the next 6 to 9 months. When you add a range, apparently, according to studies, that actually helps you reach that goal quicker. Or it's like, hey, I want to get a promotion in the next 6 to 9 months, something like that, where you have a little bit more looseness. That way, if 6 months rolls around and you don't have that promotion, you don't feel like throwing in the towel. Also, I think writing these down on paper can be really impactful. There's something about putting a pen to paper, pencil to paper, and actually putting your goals visually in front of you that I think makes them a lot more cemented in. You could also, I suppose, put this, on a Word document on your laptop or whatever. But I think having, them really just clearly written out some way is very important because, again, it just further cements in that, like, we're doing this. We are actually going for this. It's not just a dream. It's not just, a thought. It's actually something that we're actioning out. So that's the first thing I would do when you are trying to become the most unrecognizable version of you. And I doubt most of you are feeling this way because I think all of us always have work to do. But if you're feeling like I actually already have my life buttoned up, I don't really feel like I have a lot to improve upon. There are no goals that I have for myself. Think about your spiritual side. Are you spiritually connected to yourself? Or maybe it's like, hey, I want to date better prospects. Okay. Are there dating goals you can establish for yourself? Maybe it's like, I want to meet my life partner. Cool. So then I need to download dating apps. I need to go on, 3 to 6 dates a month. I am going to go to singles events. I am going to hire a matchmaker. I'm going to maybe move to a city where I'm going to be around more compatible people or take up a hobby, right? If you're listening to this podcast, I'm willing to bet dating is probably one of your goals, but put that goal on paper. Really get clear about those goals because that's going to help you roadmap how you're going to actually work on achieving them. And again, the point is to become the best version of you. So whatever capacity that resonates to you is what I want you to focus on. With all that said, goal setting is just one piece of the puzzle. The goals really don't mean much if you don't have the habits and routines to funnel into them. So stay with me because after the break, I'm going to share a strategy that has worked really well for me historically in being able to achieve my goals and ultimately help me become an unrecognizable version of me. And will, I believe, if you implement, help you a lot too. So if that sounds interesting, stay with me because we're just getting started. Thanks for staying with me through that break, guys. So, I'm going to share my personal approach and strategy to actually achieving goals and becoming the most unrecognizable version of me. And I will say this has worked for a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients. And so, it might not work for all of you, but I would recommend giving it a chance. So, essentially, as I mentioned before the break, you want to have some clear goals that you write out on paper, bucket them into different categories if you can. It just helps you get even more clear and even more organized. But again, those goals, if they're not supported by habits and routines that you carry out on the day to day, don't really mean much, right? Because then they just become distant dreams. And so, what I suggest doing is investing, and I say investing, it's literally like $5 in a habit tracker. I got mine on Amazon. I buy one of these every year whenever the new year starts. And the reason I love these is because they create a framework for you so that you can just list out your habits around each goal and then every single day check them off. And the reason this works is because 90% of life is really just showing up. I think I was listening to an old Kobe Bryant interview many years ago. This was when I was getting into my fitness and like health goals. And every year I feel like I have fitness and health goals, but this particular year is probably 3 years ago. I was like, no, I'm actually doing it. I'm actually losing the weight. I'm becoming a gym person. And I remember I would listen to like Kobe Bryant and David Goggins. And I think in one of his interviews, he was talking about how the hardest part is just showing up. And then once you've shown up, you're going to do the work. Like once you've shown up to the gym, you're going to work out. You're not going to like turn around and leave the gym. And so that really stuck with me. And I was like, wait a second, I just have a problem showing up. That's my issue. And that's why I don't reach my goals, because I put so much emphasis on showing up that when I don't show up, I don't actually do it. So the whole point of a habit tracker is to help you show up. And what I like to do after I've created my goals is I then assign habits to each goal. So for example, if the goal is like, okay, I want to make better friends who have similar hobbies to me. The habit might be I'm going to volunteer once a week at a local charity where I'm going to meet other people who are philanthropic. Or maybe it's like, hey, if I want to get in better shape, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. Or if it's like, hey, I want to make more money, then maybe the goal is I am going to spend an hour a day watching a YouTube video on how to be a better salesperson, something like that, right? Point is, you're creating habits that funnel into each goal so that when you show up, you're naturally working toward that goal. And so I'll show you a little bit of like what my habit tracker was. And by the way, this is just unique to my goals from 2024. I have to do this when 2025 hits, and I'm really excited. But January, I had one of my fitness goals was like get in better shape. And so I had 2 habits that I established. And one was 10,000 steps or more a day. That was one of my habits. Another one was either go to the gym or run 3 to 5 miles a day. So I had those 2 habits. And funny enough, for 25 days of January, I did both of those things, except for one day, I did not walk 10,000 steps. And then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days I did not run 3 to 5 miles. So the majority of the month, I adhered to that goal. Now, the whole point with the habit tracker is not to necessarily be perfect. You don't have to be 30 out of 30 days of the month doing that thing. But it's just to keep you accountable. And you get into this habit where every day you want to check off that thing that you did. And so your habit tracker should ideally have a bunch of check marks on it like mine, because that makes you feel excited to continue working toward it. And anytime you miss a day, you're like, oh, I didn't get to check that box. Another one was, February was a better month for me. February, I pretty much checked off all of them. I had spiritual goals. I wanted to become someone who is more spiritually connected. I wanted to love myself more. I had a lot of self-love goals. And so some of my habits were to meditate daily, to read my positive affirmations, and to write in my gratitude journal. And every single day in the month of February, I did each of those things. Now, those seem like really simple tasks, right? It's not that difficult to write 3 things you're grateful for every morning. It's not that difficult to recite affirmations that are pre-written to you. But when you have that habit, it's almost like a reminder that, oh, I have to do that thing. And the more you do that thing, the more that thing becomes cemented into your daily routine. And then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I am actually just someone who really loves myself, as opposed to I want to love myself. So that's part of why I really love it. Another thing that I had on my list was I really wanted to grow my social media in the first quarter of last year. And I had a goal that I'm going to post to social media daily and I'm going to film for social media daily. I did all of those things for the entire month of February. And I'm pretty sure I did them for all of March and all of April. June, I started to kind of fall off the wagon because I had some other work opportunities. I had financial goals that I hit. I had even just like intellectual goals. Like I want to read for 30 minutes a day. Did I read for 30 minutes a day every single day? No, I did not. But I read more than I did in December and November and October because I established a habit around that goal. And then again, what happens is when you start to create these habits, eventually the habits create you. You become the type of person that you are striving to be. And you take all of the guesswork and the procrastination out of the equation because you know that you just have to show up. And once you just show up, once you just play that audiobook or listen to that podcast that stimulates you intellectually, or you go to the gym or you walk your 10,000 steps, you know that you're done. You're done for the day. And there's something really fulfilling about accomplishing many tasks and goals for yourself every single day. And that's essentially how you will start to become more desirable because you're going to be working on yourself and you're going to start to desire yourself more. You're going to be like, wow, I really like the person I'm becoming because I'm working on becoming better at whatever it is that you want to become better at. So I strongly suggest getting a habit tracker, or if a habit tracker is not something that works for you, think about or maybe even research ways that are more conducive to your learning style. Maybe it's like having an accountability buddy where you and a friend are in it together and you're holding each other accountable every single day. Or maybe it's creating a vision board that you look at every day and you're reminded of all of those things that you want to hit. There are a lot of different ways you can go about goal setting and goal achieving. This just happens to be one that works for me really well. And I also implore you to think about, because this is a dating podcast and a lot of you are single, think about the type of person you want to be with. Think about their routines. Think about their habits. Think about the things that they're doing with their life. Think about the type of person they are. I think, and I actually believe that we attract what we are. Ask yourself if you are embodying those same routines. For example, if you really like the idea of being with someone who leads a healthy, active lifestyle, and you like the idea of being with someone who has their finances in order, and then you think about what kind of person that person would want, it's like, oh, that person probably doesn't want someone who has a bunch of debt. That person probably doesn't want someone who's a couch potato. Create goals that put you more in alignment with the type of person you're trying to attract. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't want a goal set for others. No, you're goal setting for you. You're goal setting for the life and the life partner that you're trying to manifest. And at the end of the day, it's all about you. It's about you creating a life that you love. And if right now you don't love your life, or you don't love yourself fully, or you don't love the person you're becoming, then this is an amazing opportunity and a reset for you to look at your life and ask yourself, am I showing up as the best version of me? We have the same number of hours in our day that Mark Zuckerberg has, that Elon Musk has, that all of these people who are accomplishing great things have, LeBron James. And think about how they're going about their day. Are they making excuses, or are they showing up for themselves? Are they showing up for their goals? Yeah, they probably have teams and processes in place, but there was a time where they didn't. And so what I hear from a lot of people, especially this time of year, is excuses. Your excuses are holding you back. And if you want to keep making excuses, it is your life. You can, but no one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You have to decide that, hey, I actually want to make a change. I want better outcomes. And if I want better outcomes, I have to become the type of person that goes out and gets them and creates systems for myself so that I'm able to actually manifest them. It is literally just about showing up. 90% of life is just showing up. When I get to the gym every day, I do my workout. You know what the hardest part is? Actually getting to a point where I put my sneakers on and I get out the door. Same with recording this podcast. Like, if I didn't have this podcast in my calendar every single week, and I knew that every single Friday at 10:30 a.m., I was going to sit down and record this podcast, you guys would not be listening right now. I had to create a system that worked for me, right? And think about also like what things you know you're not good at and then try to outsource them. The thing is though, whether you have a friend who kind of holds you accountable or you actually hire and outsource someone to hold you accountable and do the things that you don't want to do or that you're not good at, or you do it yourself, or don't do it yourself. At the end of the day, it is your life. I just want to emphasize that no one is coming to save you. You have to save yourself. Ask yourself how badly you want the life that you are trying to manifest. And I would just encourage you to do whatever it takes to go and get it. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to live in abundance. You deserve to have your dreams and wishes fulfilled. But taking inspired action is the only way you're going to get there. Let's talk about how to maintain and sustain, though, after the break, because obviously, I'm sure you've been there. You could have a great month where you carry out all your habits and you work toward your goals, but then maybe after 30 days, you start to lose steam and you revert back to your old ways. So, we're going to talk about how to maintain and sustain after the break. Stay with me. Thanks for staying with me through that break, guys. So before the break, I mentioned the importance of holding yourself accountable, whether that's hiring someone, having a friend who holds you accountable, or just doing it yourself. But what I see more often than not is after a little sprint of goal setting and habit and routine setting, sometimes people lose steam. But maybe you've been this person where after the first 30 to 90 days, you are so tired and exhausted and you've put all this work in that all you want to do is throw in the towel, take a break, and that break that was supposed to be 1 to 2 days turns into 1 to 2 weeks, which turns into 1 to 2 months. And before you know it, you are back to your old ways. I know I've been there. So these are some of my tips that have at least worked really well for me that I want to kind of pass and impart on to you. And I personally think that if you really absorb them and implement them, they'll really help with ensuring that you're able to maintain and sustain your goal setting. First tip is I strongly suggest not going way too hard with your initial habits. What I mean by that is, if I think about this diet trend that was going around 30 hard or 75 hard, or, any of these like crazy cleanses. For example, there are a lot of diets and cleanses that last 7 days, 30 days, 75 days. I know one time I did a water cleanse, which was really difficult and it was 10 days long. And what did I do on day 11? I literally walked myself over to the pizza parlor and ordered an entire pizza. And boom, there was the cleanse. Now, it wasn't for nothing, but this is very common where you restrict yourself, you go really hard on your goals, and then you just want to go back to chilling. And all of that doesn't really mean anything if that is not getting you to where you want to be. So the first thing I would suggest is try not to overly restrict yourself or be a little too intense in the beginning. Ease yourself into it. Maybe you want to become a gym person. You want to start going to the gym 6 to 7 days a week. I would recommend then week 1, starting with 2 days a week, week 2, starting with 3 days a week, and building up in that way with baby steps, as opposed to going from 0 to 100. Because if you don't already have that habitually built into your schedule, it's going to be really hard to maintain it, in my opinion. Maybe you will, but I think baby steps are the way to go. I think start small and build up. For example, if you're like, hey, I want to become healthier, maybe it's like, okay, instead of cutting out all of these different food groups January 1st, I'm going to start by just eating less sugar, and I'm going to start my morning with a celery juice, and I'm going to try to eat healthy until noon, and then afternoon, I'm going to do something different. And then you just slowly and gradually ease into it. I'm just suggesting this because I know for myself and a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients, if you go way too extreme in the beginning, a lot of the times you set yourself up for failure. And at the end of the day, we're trying to achieve long-lasting results, not things that are kind of quick fixes. And then again, once that time period has elapsed, you're back to your old ways. The second thing I would suggest is recalibrating every quarter. This is what a lot of businesses do, where every quarter they check in, they look at the quarterly kind of results, and then they make either changes, improvements, or they go even harder. I want you to almost kind of do this in your own life where you pause and reflect. Maybe it's after March or after April on the habits and the goals that you have set in place and ask yourself, am I happy with where I'm at? Do I feel like I'm moving in a positive direction? Maybe you amplify it. You turn up the dial. You're like, okay, I actually feel like given that I've been running 3 days a week, I might be able to train for a half marathon. Or maybe it's like, okay, I don't really like the way my body's looking now that I'm running this much. Maybe I need to start lifting weights or doing Pilates. There's no right or wrong answer. That's just one example, by the way. But you have to kind of check in with yourself sometimes and reevaluate your goals. Maybe your goals change. Maybe you start off the year thinking, hey, I actually want to go back to school. And then after you take that, entry exam, you're like, I don't actually like real estate, or I actually don't think I want to be an engineer. It's up to you. It's your life, and it's okay to change your mind. But check in with yourself. Don't feel like just because you have a goal, you have to stick with it. If that goal no longer aligns with the person that you're trying to be, you can rebrand yourself at any point. It doesn't have to be on January 1st. But this is also why it's really important to, I think, implement a meditation practice and a visualization practice, because it gives you the opportunity to really quiet out the noise and get clear about your dreams and your desires and your wishes. And I think when you really take that moment to just imagine yourself in that end state, in a lot of ways, it inspires you to become that type of way. The third tip is, I strongly recommend finding inspiration wherever you can. Like, for example, and I keep going back to fitness because it's such an easy one for me. Maybe it's like you want to get in the best shape of your life. Cool. So maybe you start reading books on people who lost weight and how they did it, or you start doing guided weight loss meditations, or you start listening to really fit people on the internet who inspire you. Immerse and surround yourself with the type of energy that you're trying to become. Same with business. If you're like, hey, I want to start a business, I'm going to start consuming a lot of entrepreneurial content. Or maybe you want to become a content creator, then start immersing yourself with information, stories, tips, and just looking at people who inspire you, who've done it. It's so important that we get in that flow and we get in that state. And the more we immerse ourselves in it, the more it's going to actually start to absorb into our being and change the way we operate. And the same with love. Like, if you are like, hey, this is the year I'm going to meet the love of my life, I think there's nothing wrong with going on YouTube and watching proposal videos and wedding videos and how I met my husband or how I met my wife videos. I want you to feel inspired, because that's the only way you're going to actually take inspired action. And lastly, when it comes to maintaining and sustaining, remind yourself that there is perfection in progress. It is not about being perfect every day. It is about working on yourself every day. And there are going to be days where you feel like you didn't do a good job, or maybe not. But for the most part, none of us are always able to. I showed you guys my habit tracker. Like, there weren't check marks every single day. We're not always able to properly or perfectly execute upon our goals. But the point is that you're moving in a direction, and even if something is a setback, I want you to look at it as a setup. I want you to look at it as, okay, maybe I did binge eat a bunch of cookies today, but now I'm setting myself up for tomorrow. Or, hey, maybe I started this business and it didn't go well. Okay, well, how can you just change things up so that you're not going to make, the same mistakes last time? Whatever it might be. Every setback is a setup. Or maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to go on a bunch of dates this year because I really want to meet my person. And you go on 10 dates in the span of 3 months and you're like, I haven't met my person yet. I'm ready to throw in the towel. Again, there is perfection in progress. What can you glean out of all of those situations that I just listed, or whatever situation is relevant to you as a learning? Everything is happening for you. So it's all about your perspective and trying to keep a positive attitude, as cliche as that sounds. And remind yourself that just because you haven't arrived yet doesn't mean things are not manifesting in the 5D. Doesn't mean things are not actually coming to fruition, but maybe they just haven't materialized yet. And just because you haven't met that person yet, or you haven't closed that sale yet, or you haven't hit your goal weight yet, or whatever your goal is, doesn't mean it's not happening, right? Things sometimes take time. We can't control our timelines, but what we can control is our attitude. What we can control is what we surround and immerse ourselves with. And remind yourself too that, like, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So if you want to become an amazing person who is unrecognizable, it's not going to happen in a day. It's probably not going to happen a week. It's going to take time. Get in the zone, focus on what you want, and eliminate all of the distractions that are preventing you from getting there. And you're going to wake up in 6 to 12 months and you're not even going to remember the person that was listening to this podcast today. You're going to be in a totally different end state. But you got to just keep that in mind. It's endurance. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And just because you haven't arrived yet doesn't mean you're not on your way. So those are my tips. That's hopefully a little daily dose of inspiration. I encourage you to listen back on this podcast anytime you do need that extra boost or motivation, by the way. And if you actually implement the things that we talked about, I think you're going to be very happy with where you end up. And again, it is your life. We are co-creating our destiny with the universe, at least in my opinion. And whatever it is that you desire exists. It just might not exist right now, but it doesn't mean that you cannot attain it, you cannot acquire it, you cannot attract it. You are the master of your universe. This is your video game. So take this energy into your day, set some goals, create some routines and habits around those goals, and you will be in very good shape going into 2025. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a rating or review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you have a dating question or something you're going through and you want me to respond to it on a future episode, feel free to send me a voice note on Instagram. My handle is @ask.nelly, and you might be featured in my next episode. So thanks guys for listening, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.
Pioneer.